Have you ever been praying for something on a consistent basis and you feel like God isn't answering you? Well, in this episode, I want to expose something to you that could possibly be hindering your prayers, even though you are praying consistently. So let's talk about it. I want to read to you a quick story in the Bible. And if you want to follow along, go to Luke chapter 18, verses 1 through 8. It says, "One day, Jesus told his disciples a story to show that they should always pray and never give up. There was a judge in a certain city, he said, who neither feared God nor cared about people. A widow of that city came to him repeatedly, saying, 'Give me justice in this dispute with my enemy.' The judge ignored her for a while, but finally he said to himself, 'I don't fear God or care about people, but this woman is driving me crazy. I'm going to see that she gets justice because she is wearing me out with her constant request.' Then the Lord said, 'Learn a lesson from this unjust judge. Even he rendered a just decision in the end. So don't you think that God will surely give justice to his chosen people who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will grant justice to them quickly. But when the Son of Man returns, how many will he find on the earth who have faith?'" So let's stop right there. This is actually funny because this story is one of my favorite stories in the Bible. And as you know, if you've been listening to me for a while now, we've been in the middle of doing a How to Pray series. And so as I was wrapping up and, getting ready to end the series, God laid this story on my heart and he asked me to share it with you. And so when I went back and reread it, mind you, I read the story a million times, but when I went back and reread it for the series, God gave me a revelation that I never had before. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So, in this story, there is a widow who is seeking a judge to get justice for her. And as I was reading it the other day, something that stood out to me was verse 3. It said that the widow came to the judge repeatedly asking for justice. And do you know what that word repeatedly showed me? It showed me that this widow will consistently come into this judge's presence, ask him for a request, and then return back to her situation and her circumstances that does not match what she was requesting this judge to do. The reason why she had to keep coming back to the judge and she had to keep repeating what she desired to the judge is because what she was experiencing and what she was witnessing in her life did not match the words that she was saying to him, did not match the thing that she was requesting of him. So even though her circumstance looked different than her words, she still repeated the action of coming to the judge. And you know something else that she repeated? Because if I'm being honest, this has been one of my favorite stories in the Bible, so I have read it a million times. And always when I saw that it said that she came to the judge repeatedly, I always thought that that was referring to her actions. But that word repeatedly was not just referring to her actions, it was also referring to her words. So yes, she repeated the action of consistently coming to the judge, but she also repeated her words by saying the same thing every single time that she sought the judge. Every single time that she repeated the action of coming to the judge, she would say, "Give me justice in this dispute with my enemy." So I'm trying to give this to you the way that I got it, okay? She would seek the judge, speaking of something that she desired. Then she would leave his presence and be met with her circumstance that does not match her words. And instead of laying down in her circumstance, instead of accepting her circumstance, she would consistently go back to the judge and consistently maintain the same tone that she initially started with. Think about this for a minute. How many of us pray to God? And then after we are done praying, we go back to that circumstance that hurts. We go back to that struggle that we're desperate to overcome. And since our prayers seem to not be working, since we prayed to God 5 times, since we prayed to God 50 times, we start to shift the way that we pray, where we started praying from a place of boldness. We started praying from a place of faith. We started praying, really believing that God can do it. But over time, we may continue to approach God and do the action of prayer, but the tone of our prayer begins to change. We started from a place of faith, and now we're starting to transition to a place of desperation. We're starting to transition to a place of pleading. I started to come to you and say, "God, you're going to do it." But now I'm saying, "God, please do it. God, please help me. God, won't you just do it? Don't you see what I'm going through?" our tone begins to change. And then for some of us, we get so tired of pleading with God. We get so tired of praying over the same thing over and over and over again that it initially gets to a point where we transition from boldness to pleading to not praying at all. God showed me that this woman was not just persistent in praying, because every single time that I read this story, I really thought that's what he was saying. Be persistent in praying. But God showed me the other day, he said, no, she wasn't just persistent in praying. She was persistent in her tone of her prayers. She did not switch up the tone of her prayers. She did not switch up the words of her prayer. She came to me with the same tone, with the same attitude, and the same heart posture every single time she approached me. It did not matter how many times she had to leave my presence and go back to that hurtful situation. She came and she spoke and she commanded to me to get justice until she saw me come through. She did not waver until she saw the result she was desiring. And so God is saying, I need you to be persistent. I need you to stop switching up your heart posture. I need you to stop switching up the tone of your prayers. I need you to stop coming to me on Monday with boldness, and then coming to me on Tuesday with hesitation, and then coming to me on Wednesday with doubt, and then not even praying on Thursday, and then coming back on Friday and half praying because you don't really believe. I need you to be consistent in the tone in which you approach me. And if you don't believe that what I'm saying is accurate, the proof is right here in the story. Like I said, this is one of my favorite stories, so I have read this a million times. But I will say, every single time that I've read this in the past, I always question verse 7 and verse 8. Verse 7 and verse 8 says, even the judge rendered a just decision in the end. So don't you think that God will surely give to his chosen people who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? Then verse 8 says, I tell you, he will grant justice to them quickly. But when the Son of Man returns, how many will he find on earth who has faith? Every time that I read this story, I always questioned what he meant by that. What do you mean, how many will he find on earth who has faith? And what God showed me as I was studying for this episode is he's saying, how many will I find on earth who will be persistent? How many will I find on earth who will persistently seek me with the same heart posture and the same tone, no matter what they are facing? How many will I find on earth who can come into my presence and speak something and then leave my presence and go back to a situation that does not match what they're saying, but they still maintain the same tone and they still maintain the same heart posture no matter what? How many will keep approaching me and commanding until they see me move? How many will I find on earth who shows that they actually have persistence, not just in their actions, but in their words? How many will allow their actions and their words to combine and be persistent in both areas until they see me come through? Maybe the reason why you have been praying and you have not seen God move for you is because you have mastered being persistent in your actions, but you have not mastered being persistent in your words. Look at the way that this widow approached the judge every time she approached him. She said, give me justice in this dispute with my enemy. She did not say, please give me justice in this dispute with my enemy. She did not say, can you give me justice in this dispute with my enemy? She said, give me justice in this dispute with my enemy. This widow commanded what she wanted to see. This widow did not come asking. She did not come pleading. She came commanding. And that shows that she had faith. I have so much faith that you can do it. I'm not even going to ask you to do it. I'm not even going to plead with you to do it. I'm not going to beg you to do it. I'm going to command you to do what I'm desiring for you to do. And no matter how many times she had to go back to that situation of not getting justice, she still came back with the same heart posture of commanding. And so I'm not trying to keep repeating the same thing over and over again just for the fun of it. I'm repeating it because I want you to get it. This is what persistence looks like. And so you have to make a very hard decision today. And you have to ask yourself, Will you show God that you have faith no matter what you are experiencing, no matter how many times you seek his presence and you say one thing and then you leave his presence and experience another? Will you show God that you have faith in the moments where you pray for things to get better, but then you leave his presence and it feels like things are getting worse? Will you show up with the same heart posture, or will you switch up? I used to read this story so many times. Sorry, my Siri just came on. I used to read this story so many times, and I will always question verse 8, where God says, I won't keep putting my children off. I will answer them quickly. And I started to question, why don't I ever experience God answer me quickly? But after God gave me this revelation, I had to ask myself, have I ever really shown faith? Have I ever really shown persistence? Yes, I come and I pray to you day and day and day and day. But do I come with the same heart posture? Do I come with the same tone? Do I switch up my tone and switch up my words, and I'm not consistent in the things that I'm saying? I'm not consistent in my approach. I may start off having faith, but then it switches to discouragement. Then it switches to pleading with you. Then it switches to begging you. Then it switches to asking you. Have I ever really shown that I have faith? And I realize that the answer is no. And so sometimes the reason why we don't experience God moving and we don't experience God coming through for us quickly is because we have not shown him that we can be persistent in seeking him. This is what real faith looks like. And so we have to mirror what God expects to see. And I know a lot of times when we are consistently seeking God and we are not getting a result, we tend to ask, does God hear us? But I feel like that's the wrong question to ask. Instead of saying, does God hear me? We should be asking ourselves, can we come consistently? And when we come, can we continue to maintain confidence in our prayers? Can we continue to approach him in the same tone that we started with? And when we do, that's when God will prove, I've been here the whole time. I've been listening the whole time. I may not have came when you wanted me to, but I did show up for you. And so, that is all that I have for you today. Before we go, I do have a weekly action step that I would love to give you. So sometime this week, I want you to pick one thing that you have been praying over, and I want you to make a commitment to approaching God from the same heart posture every single day, no matter what is happening or changing around you. I want you to write down how you have been approaching God or how you started approaching God, just in case you switched up on him a little bit. Write down how you started, and then make sure that the way that you started matches a command, like the way that the widow sought the judge. Make sure that it's the right posture and you're not praying from a place of desperation or you're not praying from a place of pleading with God. Make sure that it is a command and approach him exactly like that. Even if it's just once a day, read it once a day until you see God come through. But that is all that I have for you today. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you subscribe so that you get a notification the next time we release an episode. Leave a review and let me and others know how you enjoyed the show. And if you want to stay connected, follow me on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Prospering with Christ. But that's all I have for you today, and I will see you next week.